You all for appearing today. This is one of the most important hearings we do every year because there is nothing more fundamental to our nation's security than our nuclear weapons. Some people will say, why do we spend so much money on weapons that we never use? To which I reply, one, we spend not much money on these weapons relative to our entire Department of Defense, but two, more fundamentally, we use our nuclear weapons every single day, and we have for 75 years to prevent the kind of horrific world wars we saw in the last century. That's why I said 3 years ago, Ms. Gordon-Haggerty, at your confirmation hearing that you hold one of the most consequential, if not the most prominent, positions in our federal government. I want to commend you on your leadership over these last few years. I think the NNSA has been focused and is beginning to recover from years of neglect before you took office, and that's due in large part to your efforts. Could you give us a quick high-level review of the tasks to which you committed in that hearing 3 years ago and where things stand now at NNSA?
Yes. Senator Cotton, some of the priorities that I laid out at my confirmation hearing nearly 3 years ago were the following, is to regenerate and recapitalize our plutonium pit production capability that, as I mentioned in my opening statement, was shuttered 30 years ago. That is simply untenable that we have no capability to produce the critical components for a nuclear explosive package throughout the nuclear security enterprise. I committed to that. We are well on our way to producing the 10 War Reserve pits in 2024, 20 in 2025, and 30 in 2026 at the Los Alamos National Laboratory. We've got a great team there. We're making great progress in plutonium pit production and recapitalization. One of the other things I committed to was the Savannah River plutonium facility, and what we are doing is working so that we can attain a capability to produce not less than 50 pits per year in 2030. I recognized at that time, and I recognize it today, that recapitalizing a facility that was shuttered from the previous MOX facility and being able to produce a capability here in the United States to manufacture plutonium pits was our #1 priority, and it is my commitment today. The second thing I committed to was re-energizing, recruiting and retaining a world-class workforce. As I mentioned, more than 30% of our workforce is eligible for retirement in the next 5 years. That is simply untenable that if we are going to maintain a second-to-none nuclear deterrent, we need the best and brightest scientists, engineers, technicians, back office support to be able to conduct and execute our highly important missions. I'm happy to say that we've put together a corporate approach pretty much breaking the paradigm of the government bureaucracy hiring processes. And we committed to hiring 7,000 people this last year, and we exceeded those numbers, and even amidst COVID, we've exceeded the numbers for our planned FY20 hiring. So those were some of the priorities that I promised and I committed to, and I think we're well on our way by the great men and women throughout the NNSA enterprise.
Thank you very much. No amount of leadership, though, can modernize our nuclear weapons. For that, you need money. There's been a lot of back and forth today about the budget request and how it came about. The bottom line is, though, you need this money. Our nation needs this money to maintain our nuclear deterrent. $19.8 billion was the request for the upcoming fiscal year, which starts in a couple weeks. Regrettably, we're going to pass a short-term spending bill, but when we do finally pass that full-year spending bill, is $19.8 billion adequate, in your opinion, to modernize our nuclear weapons and perform NNSA's other important missions?
Yes, sir. If appropriated, the 21 request, which is $19.8 billion, that will serve as the new floor for the NNSA enterprise. We are committed to supporting the 4 or possibly 5 modernization programs for the Department of Defense, committed to providing militarily effective nuclear propulsion for the United States Navy, as well as our commitment to defense nuclear nonproliferation and arms control efforts. But that is assuming that we will receive that $19.8 billion. If we do not receive that, I cannot commit to you that we will continue to remain aligned with the Department of Defense for their missions to execute our nuclear deterrent.
And what will be your request for fiscal year 22?
Sir, I'm not at liberty to talk about the FY.
I thought I might slip it by you. I guess not. I would note that a 2% increase, which is just the rate of inflation, would be $20.2 billion, though. Ms. Lord, very briefly, you have sent a letter to the committee that says that the House's legislation that would, from the Energy and Water Appropriations Subcommittee, would provide insufficient funds to execute the activities necessary for our nuclear weapons stockpile. Could you explain briefly what the near-term impacts on the readiness would be if we adopted the House's approach?
Yes, Senator. The nearest term fallout from that would be a delay in the B61-12 in 2021 would be the first impact. We would also see an effect on the W80-4 warhead. And then if the W93 was zeroed out, we couldn't support the UK in the alignment of programs we have where we support them with non-nuclear as well as science and technology. The LRSO, very, very important to us because we have zero margin with Alcom timing out. That $170 million mark would be catastrophic, as well as ground-based strategic deterrent, our intercontinental ballistic missile replacing Minuteman III, where again we have zero margin. That $60 million mark would not allow us to meet the time frame we need.
Thank you. Those are all dire consequences for the American people, not to mention our British allies.
Absolutely.
Thank you all.